I think for a lot of spectators of sports, unless you see blood, you don't necessarily think anything's wrong with these athletes. I wanted to show what happens inside the body. And it was also allegorical to tracking the monster that Tyreek's character is becoming. So he's getting better at football, but being better at football means you're being more violent, which means he's becoming more of the monster.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, a young athlete descends into a world of terror when he's invited to train with a legendary champion in director Justin Tipping's sports horror, Him. The film tells the story of Cam, a promising young football player who's invited to train at the isolated compound of legendary quarterback Isaiah White. But things turn unsettling as White takes his protégé on a blood-chilling journey into the pursuit of excellence at all costs. In addition to Him, Tipping's other directorial credits include the feature film Kicks and episodes of the series Joe vs. Carol, Flatbush Misdemeanors, Run the World, 20s, and Black Monday. Following a screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Tipping spoke with director Jennifer Kaytin Robinson about filming Him. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
Can we clap one more time for Justin in that movie?
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, I'm going to ask you.
Back.
Yes, we do. We actually shared an actor this year.
Yeah.
Tyreek Withers was in both of our films, so I'm very excited to talk to Justin. As a director, when you get a script, what is there a thing? And I'm sure this is going to be hard to answer, so I apologize. Is there a thing that makes you go, yes, I want to direct this? Like, what are you looking for? Is it intangible? Was there something you were looking for with this? What made you say yes? Like, how do you attack yes to a film as a director?
Okay. This might go more emotional than you think on this one specifically, but the first thing that jumped out immediately was, because this was originally a Blacklist script. By the time I got it, they were looking for a writer or director to make it their own, but I remember the first time I read the Blacklist script, there was a visceral reaction of like, I know how to do this. And I was thinking about comps, and the exciting part was I couldn't point to a comp. I couldn't actually go, oh, like that. And so that was terrifying and exciting at the same time, especially when I got hired, because I was like, oh, I actually got to do it now. But also, like, the other thing that was speaking to me about the material was, one, I made Kicks my first feature, and the first day on the first paid directing gig I'd ever gotten was an episode of The Chi. Halfway through the day, I got a call my dad died. And one of the most traumatic things that ever happened, it was unexpected. It was totally random. And I was back at set 2 weeks later, and I don't think I stopped shooting. I just said yes to everything, and I don't think I stopped shooting for like several years. It was just back to back to back until I burnt myself out. I shot through the pandemic, and I was in Australia, like stuck in Queensland, and I remember getting back from all that. My body shut down, and it was the most cliche thing, but it was true. It was like, okay, I'm making money, but it's probably the most depressed I'd ever been. And I think realized I was, trying to avoid processing any kind of grief. And that's where I lost myself. That was my safe space. That monologue he gives in there is essentially that's me speaking through him in a way. So I think that there was also like a reckoning happening globally. Just how do we spend our time after COVID happened? Because I guess it's pointing to a thing that I grasped onto was fundamentally, it didn't matter if you were a quarterback or a professional athlete. If you were a writer or journalist, you sold bananas or whatever the hell it is, if you were passionate about your craft or you wanted to be great at something, I think people could all understand that feeling, especially after the pandemic, of like, why did I miss that birthday? Why did I miss the wedding? Or like, I remember in Australia missing my brother's, like the birth of my niece, but I couldn't go back. But so I think I was grappling with all that stuff and the combination of growing up as an athlete, thinking I could was playing soccer in college, left that, found film. So it was like pretty much felt like everything was just like converting into this one thing. And so the script came across my desk after I took time off and was like, all right, I'm ready to go back and make another feature. And it was starting to write another feature. And then of course the universe was like, but what about this? And I was like, I'll sacrifice everything.
I mean,
just kidding.
Watching the film, I've never played football, which might be shocking to you, having seen me. I've never played football. But his drive is so similar to the drive of a director. And I think that there are a lot of parallels in the arc of this film and the arc of what it is like to make a film. And it's guttural and heartbreaking, and you sacrifice everything and you miss everything and you care so much and you just want it to be great. Was that present for you? Did it feel like in making this film, like you were kind of like in trying to make the film great, living the film a bit?
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't lost on me. Like, this was my first studio film, and I was an underdog. You know, I had everything to prove, and I was the biggest risk, especially when I was pitching such crazy shit to them, and trying to get people on board with your vision, but you can't have it. You don't have a comp to point to like, I promise you it's going to be okay. I had to fight for pretty much everything. And so it was that's why I think I'm so proud of it, because it's so hard to make a movie, like, period. It's just hard to get a movie made. But this was, it was a challenge. Like, I had the sandbox I could play in. There was no more money. There was no more time. It was just go, go, go. And I also, thank God I had those years in television, because it did prepare me I essentially just, every day was almost the same kind of pressure and time and to get it done.
Okay, speaking of crazy shit that you did, what I'm going to call the X-ray footage, will you tell me about the figuring out how to do that and how you did it and what that process was like?
Yeah. So what happened was, I wrote that in, and the impetus was, I think for a lot of spectators of sports, unless you see blood, you don't necessarily think anything's wrong with these athletes. And so I wanted to show what happens inside the body. And it was also allegorical to tracking the monster that Tyreek's character is becoming. So he's getting better at football, but being better at football means you're being more violent, which means he's becoming more of the monster. Essentially, it just breaks down to its Nosferatu, or but so that in mind, I had this idea, but no one really knew, was like, how are we going to do it? And we did this thing where we got a military grade thermal camera and off eBay, and we jerry rigged it on top of our Arri, so our cinema camera. So they were like this, and then we try to get them to line up as close as we could, and our AC 3D printed a special mechanism so that we could pull focus on both cameras and still operate them as A/B cameras. And so we're slating with slate, and then another aluminum board with foil and magnet alphabet letters to get it all synced. But we were able to go handheld. I mean, it was so heavy. I'm so sorry, Scott Dropkin, wherever you are. But it was really like we were experimenting. Like we felt like we were all like kids had this little secret in the backyard. Like, what if we did this? Because obviously, like the UPM's freaking out. It's like, we don't have time for this. How's this gonna look? We don't even know how it's gonna look. But we, like everything in this movie, we wanted to take the biggest swing we could at every turn. So ultimately, what you're seeing is those two images merged together, and then VFX had body scans of Tyreek and Marlon. So then we mapped the skeleton system, the nervous system, the muscular system, and the brain onto those images. And I could sit there with the VFX artists and modulate up and down how the opacity of each of the layers of the body. And that's how
How long was that process?
We did it.
Like even just like the modulating and like looking at it and tweaking it, like how long was the process of finding the exact right version of it?
Yeah, it was long. I mean, we started tests and the second we got a shot to line up with the two cameras and we were like 2 weeks out, that went off to the VFX house and we started tests immediately. But because this has never really been done before, it was like, we didn't, honestly, I could reference the closest thing we could do is on the monitors. We would do the opacity there and try to line it up, and I could like feel what it was going to be like, but you're not really sure, you're not totally sure because we didn't have a proof of concept yet. So but by the time we got to post, we kind of landed on a look based off the test footage. It was just like our stunt guy in a parking lot, like just like hitting a wall or something. But I do remember that shot in the movie where they hit during the football drill. It's the first time we go full screen with it and stay in it. I had shot listed that scene and specifically knowing that we didn't have time to waste. So I try to match as many frames as I could from that scene to test. And that's what we were testing.
So cool. It looks so good. So congratulations. You did an amazing job.
Thank you. I think they're building a rig.
And you're going to get copied. People are going to rip you off.
They're already building a rig, I think, that will line up the sensors, the mirrors. I'm like, I wish we had that, but.
Tyreek Withers. Amazing.
Tyreek Withers.
The GOAT.
The GOAT.
Some might say. How did you find him? What did you think when you first saw him? What was that like, kind of like him walking in a room, because he really commands a room. Did you know immediately what was the meeting Tyreek process like?
Yeah. Shout out Carmen Cuba. She was our casting director, and she pointed me to him, and I had known him from Atlanta, the episode of Atlanta. I was like, oh, it just so happened to be he's also a freak athlete, and he only played 1 year of high school football. And then, because he was a soccer player like me, but after that, just based off of 1 year of high school football, he was walked on to Florida State, which is one of the biggest football programs in the world. So he's a freak athlete. But I remember looking at his Instagram. This was the moment. And there's this post he has of after they wrap that episode, and he's giving a speech to the cast and crew about how thankful he is. And there was something about it. Well, one, he's so different than the character, so that was impressive. But he's so gentle and like soulful and sensitive, and you could tell he has this kind of swagger that is very authentic to someone who played sports and has been in locker rooms. That kind of leadership role, and he just had that you can't teach that. And for a movie like this, it was very important that I didn't want to cheat the throws in the edit. He's throwing, that's all him. And so it was the combination of him also the parallel of him as well being a bit new. Like, this was the first time, like, number one on a call sheet at this level, and stepping into celebrity, stepping into the spotlight. So yeah, 90% of directing's casting, then that was everything just felt like he was born for this.
I agree. I think he is as well. And he really feels like a movie star in your film. He's really wonderful in it, and you did a really amazing job. It's so demanding physically and psychologically. What was your process with the actors throughout, prep and production with Tyreek and with Marlon in kind of creating this world and, being the leader, creating something that is pretty f***ed up?
Their process was pretty nuts. I'm not gonna lie. Like Marlon transforms physically and mentally. His soul, like he was training with. They were both training with a trainer, but it was like beyond physical. There was, morning walks were being built in, like meditation, all these other holistic things were happening. And then they both also trained with Adam Palmer, who's like this really well-known quarterback coach who most rookies who are entering the draft actually train with. So they went, and like Tyreek was able to hang out with like Josh Allen and a bunch of other incoming quarterbacks and train with them. And yeah, people were sending videos like while I'm in development, and like just seeing him actually throw a football and hit a post. And it was just like, you gotta be kidding me. He hits a post, and that he does hit a post in the movie. At
the beginning of the movie, that's real.
He does hit a post, yeah. One of them we comped, but he does hit one.
How much did you comp it by? Did he miss it, or was it like,
yeah, he
was pretty close?
I think he missed the first one, hit the second. It was pretty nuts.
What is it like on set when he hits the post and you get it in camera?
We cheered. Yeah. We hugged. Yeah. We cheered. We're like, no way. Are you kidding me? But yeah, wait, did I answer the question?
The question was, what do you, as a director, like what is your process with the actors, knowing that you're bringing them into this world? You know that it's physically demanding. You know it's psychologically demanding. Like, what is your process in being the leader of a ship that is as dark as this is?
Yeah, I actually didn't rehearse traditional sense, like really at all. They had met each other while they were training, but it was more just getting to know them each on a human level and hanging out. And about like a week out, we got together and we were like improvising, but like totally made up scenarios, and we were just having fun and exploring like situations. And I definitely gave them some films to watch.
What are those films?
I told Marlon to watch Training Day, and we talked a lot about Denzel's performance in that movie and how beat to beat, sentence to sentence, you're not sure how he's going to feel. And there's something unsettling about that dynamic. And when Marlon and I were talking, we wanted it to be a similar level of anxiety and really create a narcissistic, abusive relationship. And that's where Marlon can only do Marlon. Like he's pulling, and it's the other thing I talked about with Marlon was just his experience. He himself is a goat and is in a goated family. And he has stories about like Richard Pryor coming over when he's like 8 and like messing with his brothers. So he's just been around celebrity fame and seen both good and bad, and is also aging. And so there was a lot of conversations about the parallels to his career and the things he sacrificed. And so it was actually pretty healing for like everyone involved in a way. Tyreek lost his brother, and so we all had a similar shared experience in that sense as well. And it was more about like talking about that deeper, just that deeper undercurrent of why we do it, who we do it for, and Yeah, it was more that. But, Marlon knew he was going to set the tone on set, and everyone was going to look to him. And I'm not going to lie, I was a little nervous. I was like, oh, God, day one, here we go. Is he going to be like 3 hours late? Like, what's his vibe going to be? But he and I, got along great from the beginning. And he was just showed up every day, just on time. Like, it was like him and Tyreek were insanely prepared. And I think that comes for the physicality. Tyreek had that built in from being a collegiate athlete. He had already known how to like wake up at 5 a.m., train, read lines, then go to class. And it's like the same, it just translated. And I think Marlon had the same experience of he'll do like 6 months without a day off. So he also just gets up, flies across the country, does a show, and then back to writing, then back to pitching, then back to, so the physicality was something we always had to really be on standby for. Because much like in the movie, Tyreek was also like, no, I'm fine.
I've seen that as
well.
well.
Let me keep going. I'm fine. And it's like, he's fine. He's got a rest, and everyone's like, give him a Gatorade. And trying to get him to not like, he doesn't have to, rehearse this right now. So it was more of maybe this isn't, but the feeling of like every actor, they have their own process. So you need to figure out what they want and how they work and meet them there. So I feel like at a certain point, then your job is to just be therapist to everybody and try to be hyper vigilant about their state and their mood and help them get there.
I think that's really lovely. I think that's a great way to direct and be a leader. The movie is gorgeous. It's really, really, really stunning looking. What was the process in prep in finding the look with your DP and production designer?
So I came in because we had to create, we couldn't do anything with the NFL. Like if we were close, it was like go farther. So I knew I was going to have to create this little universe like Any Given Sunday. I came in with knowing that I wanted to do something very hyper realistic, and the grounding point would be Tyreek's performance. He's like the socio-realism in a way, that choice. And then everything around would be the big personalities of Julia Fox and Marlon Wayans and Jim Jeffries. And so I always come in with a massive lookbook.
When do you make the lookbook? Is that before anyone's doing anything? Like when you first get the script, when you first come onto the project, at what point does the lookbook start?
Yeah, I have a lookbook. When I pitch on things, I have a lookbook that's like at least 60 to 100 ready to go.
What are you using? Pinterest, Shotback? How are we creating the lookbook? Don't gatekeep.
I'm not. I actually have a Google Doc link to everything that I use. Happy to share it with everybody.
Everyone would like to see that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I will. DGA. I'll give you all the fine art blogs and things that I dig from, but I do, and usually it's tonal, and I do a taste test, and so I can speak to why something's working and why it's not. And I had already had like a camera story in mind. I had already had a light story in mind. I wanted to, for example, I was already showing examples of Baroque or chiaroscuro lighting, and a lot of classical in terms of the religious undertones. To give it that weight of the new mythology and God Family Football. I knew that I was going to put the house underground because that would allow me to justify top light. And that would allow me to justify feeling like you enter a cathedral. And that gives it this bigger, holier than art thou kind of reverence.
Is the house a build?
The exterior is an actual place. That is a space port. not kidding.
Space.
They fly
Outer
people to
space.
space
100%.
from that location in New Mexico. And I don't know
How's that
what
going for them.
I guess good. It was kind of weird, not gonna lie. It's like government property for the state, but they're leasing it to Virgin
You
Atlantic.
shot this at Area 51.
Yeah. And but that location fit exactly like the things that I was talking to my production designer and cinematographer about, where I wanted to lean into brutalism. And there were even, if you look at images of like Tom Ford's house, which is also in a similar area, there's like circular corrals made out of cement. And it's very, very, very brutal in the middle of nowhere. And it feels monolithic. And then suddenly, you know, and scouts come up and like, it's like, what the hell is that thing? And so it just somehow was all like that football field.
Was that brought to you by a location manager?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And that football field just happened to be like a brutalist football field that 7 different high schools used in Albuquerque. I don't know why they did that, but it worked for me because I was like, this is literally what I was describing in terms of the tone and the
Did you do
architecture.
any augmentation to either exterior location or is it as is?
No, we did tweak both locations. I think we added, we just, so that we could clean up whatever in the landscape. Yeah, if you didn't get the first time, there's actually the football field is in the background of Cameron when he's taking photos walking up to the entrance of the house. But then all the interiors we did build. Well, yeah, so like the film room, the spa, and the hallways. That was, but that was also an intentional, like I didn't want to go back to very vertical and maze-like horror tropes. I wanted to do something similar, but with curves. And it's like an Escher sketch or something where that curved hallway in the interior that we built was also out of necessity, actually, where we were just shooting French overs. So it's just one half of a hallway, but because everything's set up as circular, you could shoot that way and then shoot that way. It all looks the same. And same with that big sweeping hallway when he first enters. That's just the hallway at the high school stadium. So we just put that chartreuse carpet down and made a very specific choices of just like a statue to make it look rich without having money to actually dress.
Minimalism is rich.
It's rich.
And also helpful when you don't have a lot of money.
Correct. But that was another piece of the puzzle though, was to shoot this out in like 30 days or whatever he had. It was like that high school field that he's training on was just the practice field to the brutalist field to the hallway to the everything was kind of, it was a puzzle.
What were the references that you shared with department heads, if any? Obviously you shared films with Tyreek and Marlon. Were the same films for your department heads, different films in building world and imagery and all of that?
There were several. For when I first pitched to Monkey Paw, for example, I was like, here's the first two, like I'm referencing post-Vietnam films for the emotional arcs of Tyreek and Marlon. I was referencing Full Metal Jacket and Apocalypse Now for their performances. And that was the arc. And then I went back in terms of the aesthetic of the genre to stuff like The Shining, Jacob's Ladder, Black Swan, and Luca's Suspiria. I would say that my favorite horror film of all time is Alien. And when I think about it, I kind of just made Alien. I mean, there's a monster in the house and you don't know who to trust. And then, but, whoa, weird. Big corporation, institutions actually driving everything. Damn. Thanks, Alien. But
it's amazing when a film can inspire you so much you don't even realize how much it inspires you.
So that's what I was, kind of looking towards. And then here's the up one too. I made Tyreek watch Holy Mountain. Jodorowsky, like all of
Yes.
Jodorowsky's. That was a big inspiration for me as well.
It has Holy Mountain vibes. It has a Jodorowsky, like if he like had a really bad trip.
Yeah. The last scene is incomplete, like, because again, it came from what can I do with this budget? And so it's truly like we were able to get the goat head, but Jodorowsky does so well is like take normalcy and then it's just how you set it and frame it. And if it's repetition, then suddenly you're reaching this uncanny valley of grounded or Lynchian. David Lynch was also a litmus test on set it's got to be more Lynch, Ian. But
is there a scene that you went more Lynch with that you were like, this got to be more Lynchian?
Oh man,
It didn't start there.
If you look at the fan who just wants a signature on his head, that I would say that, because I think on the page it didn't necessarily translate to that tone, and so it was like no, just let it be, just lean in, and like he walks around the dumpster, sees the guy. It's so simple, but it's just, it's eerie.
Yeah. So on this movie, on every movie I do, I feel like I learn something that I take through to the next movie that I do. What is the thing you learned on this film that you didn't know before making it that you will take into everything that you do in your career moving forward?
Ooh. This is a very practical thing that I learned. And it's, we feel it out. But I think I learned that as a first-time studio director, when they say they don't have any more money, they're lying.
100%. 100%.
And my Asian American ass was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, no more time. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll figure it out. Yeah, I guess I'll just, and then like, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll make it happen.
They love to say you got to figure it out.
But I didn't know that. So I probably made it harder than I needed to. Because
I bet the movie is better because you had to figure it out.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think that a lot of lo-fi stuff, well, I actually would prefer a sandbox. I think I go too nuts when they're like, do whatever you want. Or no one's ever said that, but maybe one day. But I did like that because and that's part of the reason why we want to lean into the psychological horror, because I knew that would give me more opportunity to have more fun. Like the football that comes out of around the hallway. First of all, that's stupid. I remember talking to Jordan and being like, oh, like what if that would happen, like laughing. And then I was like, wait, if you can make that, like actually execute that, that's weird. Yeah, why not? But that was, we just put the ball there, and then I got a leaf blower, blew it that way, and then I reversed it. That's it.
I feel like you did a lot of stuff in this movie that you were just like, let me see how this goes.
Yeah. Well, especially like the thermal stuff in that last fight. I was always off camera with like, I'd have like a bottle of cold water and hot water, and we'd have like hair dryers and just like ice cold bottle of water. So he's like slamming him, right? And I would just run in and like pour. That's just me pouring a water bottle over Marlon's face. So if you look at like the airy footage, he's just like, and I'm like there pouring water on him. But in the thermal, it reads like a black primordial oozy thing. So there's a lot of that.
Yeah, I think the best tool you can have as a director is to not know how anything's going to be done, not know how anything is supposed to be done, and have an amazing imagination. That is when you make him. And so thank you for making him. And it was really wonderful. And thank you guys for being here and hearing us talk about it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America.